The night sky was glowing red. Strange lights moved above the forest, silent, slow, and not made by humans. Ryder stood outside his broken shelter, holding his old rifle tight. He hadn't seen other humans in weeks. Not since the sky cracked open and things began falling from orbit. He remembered the first explosion. The ground had shaken like it wanted to tear apart. Fire rained down from the clouds. His radio picked up only static. One by one, the outposts went silent. The cities burned. Then came the silence. A deep, heavy silence, like the whole planet was holding its breath. Ryder had once been a scout. Quiet, smart, and quick. He knew how to survive in the woods, and that's what saved him. He built a small shelter far away from everything, hidden under tall trees, near a cold stream. That was months ago. Now, the world was different. Alien. Ships floated above like birds of prey. He stayed hidden, watched from the shadows. Sometimes he saw flashes of light in the sky, heard distant screams carried by the wind. He never stayed in one place too long. And he never trusted anything that moved, but that night was different. He had just finished a small meal, dry roots, a few berries, and boiled water. His blanket, worn and rough, was the only thing that gave him warmth. He laid it out by the fire and stared at the sky, his rifle always close. That's when he heard it. Not a scream, not a machine. It was soft, a breath, a whisper. He turned fast, weapon ready. The trees were still. The night air was cool. Then something moved, a few. Shape, tall and strange, stepping out from the darkness. She didn't speak. She didn't attack. She just stood there, looking at him. At first, Ryder thought it was another alien drone or trick. But the figure was wrong. Too soft. Too human-like. She stepped closer into the light. Ryder's eyes widened. She had wings huge, golden, and full of soft feathers. Her skin glowed like moonlight. Her hair was thick and wild, almost like fur. And her ears were long, pointed, with soft tufts at the tips. But her eyes were full of pain. She stumbled, one hand holding her side. Blood, dark red, not human, ran down her ribs. Ryder didn't move. The girl fell to her knees. Her body trembled, and then she collapsed near the edge of the firelight. Ryder waited. She didn't move again. Slowly, he approached. She was breathing, barely. Her skin was cold. He could have walked away, left her there. But something about her felt wrong and right at the same time. He pulled her closer to the fire and covered her with his blanket. She didn't wake up. She only let out a soft sound, a mix between a sigh and a growl, and curled into the blanket like it belonged to her. Ryder didn't sleep that night. He sat beside her, staring at the fire, gun in hand. Morning came slow. Light touched the trees. Birds were silent. The girl stirred. Ryder looked over just as her eyes opened. She blinked at him, confused. Then she looked down at the blanket wrapped around her. She pulled it tighter and looked back at him. Her wings moved slowly behind her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She lowered her head and let out a quiet sound, a strange alien hum like a word he didn't understand. Then she did something he never expected. She reached forward, pulled his hand gently, and guided him down beside her. Before he could stop her, she curled against his chest, closed her eyes, and let out a soft purr. Not a threat. Not fear. Trust. Ryder stayed frozen. Her breath was warm. Her body, now close to his, stopped shaking. He didn't understand what she was. He didn't know why she was here. But he knew one thing. She had claimed his blanket. And now she was sleeping on his chest. As if she had always belonged there. Ryder didn't move for a long time. The strange winged girl was still asleep on his chest, wrapped in his blanket like it was her own. Her body was light, soft, warm now. She didn't feel like a threat anymore, just tired, like she had run from something terrible. He watched her face. Her breathing was slow, calm. She looked peaceful, like she had finally found safety. Ryder had seen many things in war. He had never seen anything like her. When the sun climbed higher, the girl finally opened her eyes. She didn't jump or panic. She looked up at him, blinked, then rested her head back down without a word. As if it was normal to be this close. As if she had already decided he was hers. Ryder gently cleared his throat. "You understand me?" he asked. The girl didn't answer. She just looked at him again, this time with soft eyes. Then she touched her chest with one hand, then pointed at his chest. Her lips moved, and a sound came out low and melodic, like a name in her language. She repeated it softly. He pointed at himself. "Ryder." She nodded slowly. Then she touched her own chest and said something that sounded like Kayla. Ryder nodded. Kayla. Her ears perked at the sound. She smiled, just slightly. But the peace didn't last long. A loud boom echoed through the trees. Ryder snapped up, pushing Kayla behind him. She moved fast, too quicker than he expected. Her wings opened wide, glowing in the sunlight, ready to protect. More sounds followed, metal clashing, something burning in the distance. Ryder grabbed his rifle and checked the sky. Kayla stayed close, eyes narrowed, body tense. He looked at her. "Do you know who they are?" She gave a sharp nod, then made a growling sound in her throat. Her wings flared out again, and she hissed toward the sky. She remembered them. Whoever attacked Earth, they had hurt her too. Kayla stepped away from the fire, crouched low. Her golden wings folded against her back. She picked up a long branch and broke it in half like it was nothing. Her strength surprised him. Ryder frowned. "You can fight?" She looked at him, then pointed at herself, then at the forest, then held out two fingers in the air, like drawing enemy shapes. After that, she touched her injured side and growled. "They shot you," Ryder muttered. Kayla nodded. He looked at the trail beyond the trees. "They're searching," he said. Kayla stepped forward, stood right in front of him, and gently placed one clawed hand on his chest. She looked up at him seriously, then pressed her forehead to his. He didn't understand the meaning, but it felt like a promise. That night, they didn't speak. They didn't sleep. They moved deeper into the woods together. Kayla never left his side. She didn't ask for the blanket again. She stayed close, and when Ryder sat to rest, she curled against him without waiting for permission. He tried to keep his distance. But somehow she didn't let him. She would stare at him when he cooked. She'd make low humming sounds when she sat beside him. She didn't speak his words, but her eyes always said more than enough. That she had no army, no weapons, just wings, claws, and instinct. And for some strange reason, she had chosen to stay with him. Maybe it was the blanket, or maybe for the first time in her life, she had found someone who didn't treat her like a thing. Not a weapon. Not an enemy, just a person. Later, after their fire was out, Kayla tugged lightly at Ryder's arm again. He was too tired to fight it. She pulled the blanket over both of them and rested her head on his chest again, just like before. This time, he didn't resist. He wrapped an arm around her softly, as the forest stayed quiet under the stars. Asterisk. The wind picked up the next morning. Cold air blew through the trees as Ryder opened his eyes. Kayla was still asleep, wrapped around him, her wing draped over his side like a soft shield. He could feel the slow beat of her heart. It was strong. Steady, not human, but close. He stayed still, watching her face. There was something about her, not just the way she looked. Not even the way she had saved him from loneliness. It was the way she trusted him, deeply, silently, without a word. But he knew it wouldn't last. The war hadn't ended. Something was coming. The sound of machines in the distance had been getting closer each day. Carefully, Ryder slid out from under her wing. Kayla stirred but didn't wake. He checked his gear. His rifle had one good magazine left. Not enough. He moved quietly to the edge of the rocks and looked out. Smoke. Not far. maybe 2 hills away. Something had crashed or landed. Suddenly Kayla was beside him. He hadn't even heard her move. Her bare feet didn't make a sound on the ground. She followed his eyes, saw the smoke, and her expression changed. Her body tensed, lips tight. Ears alert. "You know what that is," he said. Kayla nodded slowly. She stepped forward, opened her wings, and pointed. Then she raised one clawed finger up, then down. Ryder understood. A patrol. It was sweeping the area. They were looking for something, or someone. Maybe her. Kayla looked at him seriously. Then she reached out, placed her hand gently on his cheek, and spoke a few quiet words in her language. He didn't understand them, but he didn't have to. She was telling him to stay, to hide, but Ryder shook his head. "No, if they find you, I won't just sit here." She looked pained, like she didn't want him hurt. But she also didn't stop him. The two moved quickly, deeper into the woods. Kayla climbed the trees like a shadow. Ryder followed on foot. They reached a ridge, and from there, they saw 3 alien machines, tall and armored, walking on 4 legs like giant insects. Each one had red lights scanning the trees. Kayla crouched low beside him. She pointed at the edge of the trees, then made a motion with her hands, fast, sharp. A strike. Ryder watched her move. This was no scared refugee. She was trained. She had fought before. Then he saw something wrapped around her wrist. A metal band, almost hidden under her fur. It glowed faintly when she got close to the machines. He touched it lightly. "Tracker?" Kayla nodded once. "They're hunting you," Ryder whispered. She gave him a long look. Then she held up the wrist and brought it to her mouth. Without fear, she bit into it hard. Blood spilled, but she didn't stop. The metal cracked, then broke apart. The light went out. Ryder helped her wrap the wound. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. Then, suddenly she looked up and grabbed his arm tight. Something was near. They turned just as one of the alien machines came through the trees. It saw them. Kayla pushed Ryder back and spread her wings wide, stepping between him and the machine. It raised a weapon. But before it could fire, Kayla leapt. She moved like lightning, her claws tearing into the machine's side. Sparks flew. The weapon fired, hitting the trees. Ryder ducked and rolled behind a rock, heart pounding. Kayla tore the machine down with pure force. She screamed a wild, furious sound and ripped out the machine's glowing core. The other 2 machines turned fast. Ryder didn't hesitate. He aimed and fired. One shot, then another. He didn't hit the core, but he slowed them down. Kayla landed beside him again, her chest rising and falling. Blood stained her arm, but she was still standing. They looked at each other, both breathing hard. They had survived. Together. Without words. Kayla reached out and placed her hand in his. And for the first time, Ryder didn't feel alone in this war. Night fell hard after the fight. Ryder and Kayla moved quickly through the trees, their breaths visible in the cold air. The last 2 machines had retreated, but they would return. Ryder knew it. So did she. They crossed a stream, climbed a narrow hill, and finally stopped beneath a rocky cliff. Ryder had found this place months ago. A small cave hidden behind thick vines, dry, cold, but safe. Kayla stepped inside first. Her wings brushed the rocks, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Ryder followed, pulling the vines back into place to hide the entrance. Inside, the air was still and quiet. The walls of the cave felt like a protective shell. Kayla dropped to her knees. Her wound had opened again. Blood trickled from the bandaged arm. She gritted her teeth, but didn't complain. Ryder knelt beside her, took off his pack, and pulled out what little he had. A piece of cloth, some boiled moss, a few herbs he remembered from survival training. She let him work. As he cleaned the wound, she didn't flinch, but her eyes never left his face. She watched him like he was doing something important, like he mattered. After he wrapped her arm, she touched his hand again, gently, slowly. Her claws barely brushed his skin. He looked at her, trying to understand. "Why are they hunting you?" he asked softly. Kayla looked down. Then she reached into her fur-covered belt and pulled out something small. A glowing shard, smooth, silver, and warm. She held it out to him. Ryder took it carefully. "What is this?" She touched the side of his head, then her own. "A message?" He guessed. She nodded. He stared at the shard. "They want this?" Kayla nodded again, then looked at the cave entrance. Her face darkened. Ryder frowned. "You stole it." Her silence was the answer. Kayla wasn't just running. She had taken something important, something they wanted back badly. But she wasn't planning to hand it over. He looked at her again. "Why bring it to me?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she crawled closer, her face just inches from his. She placed her hand over his heart. Thump. Then her own chest. Thump. Her lips parted slightly. She spoke a word that sounded like bonded. Ryder's heart skipped a beat. "Bonded?" He whispered. She nodded. In her world, in her people's way, maybe that's what she believed. That when he saved her, gave her the blanket, let her sleep beside him, something changed. Something deep. She didn't just trust him now. She had chosen him. Kayla curled against him again, the same way she had the night they met. Her wing draped over his chest. Her head rested on his shoulder. She made a soft hum deep in her throat. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't pain. It was comfort. A sound that said, "This is home." Ryder slowly wrapped the blanket over both of them. He didn't ask questions. Not now. She was tired. She had fought for him. She had bled for him. She had chosen to stay. And even though he didn't understand her world, he didn't want her to leave. The fire outside the cave had long burned out. The sky above was full of stars, and distant engines echoed again through the trees. But in that small, hidden place, there was warmth. 2 hearts. One promise. And the girl who had once stolen his blanket now slept on his chest like she never wanted to let go. Ryder woke with Kayla still wrapped around him. Her body was warm, soft, and still. Her wing covered him like a second blanket, but her ears twitched. She was already awake, listening. He looked at her face. Her eyes opened slowly. There was no fear in them, only focus. "Something's coming," he whispered. Kayla nodded. They both rose without a word. Ryder checked his rifle. Kayla crouched near the cave's edge and sniffed the air, her animal-like senses alert. The world outside was quiet, but too quiet. Then they heard it. Voices. Not human ones, metallic, distant, sharp. Ryder crawled to the edge and looked out. 3 alien scouts were moving through the trees, slim, fast, tall like shadows. They had glowing arms and searchlights that scanned the forest floor. Their armor shone like glass, and their heads turned in sharp. Sudden jerks. They were getting close. Kayla stepped behind him, holding the silver shard close to her chest. She was shaking. Ryder looked at her. "We can run. There's still time." Kayla didn't move. She looked into his eyes, then down at the shard. She pressed it into his hands. Ryder stared. "What are you doing?" Kayla spoke one soft word. "You." Then she touched her forehead to his. She was giving it to him, trusting him with the thing that could get her killed. He understood now. This shard, it wasn't just information. It was a message, a warning, or maybe proof, something that showed what her people had done, or what they were planning to do. Maybe something they didn't want anyone else to see. She had taken it. And now she was handing it to a human. The metal was warm in his hand. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Suddenly, from outside, a voice shouted. One of the aliens had found their trail. Kayla spun, eyes glowing gold. Her wings flared wide. She didn't wait. She ran out of the cave straight into the trees. "Kayla, no!" Ryder shouted, but she was gone. He cursed under his breath. shoved the shard into his jacket, and ran after her. He followed her sound through the woods, rifle in hand, moving fast out up ahead. He saw a flash Kayla striking one of the scouts from above, claws tearing through armor. The creature fell hard, but the others reacted quickly. One raised a weapon. Ryder didn't think. He aimed, fired. The beam shot through the trees and struck the alien's chest. It sparked and fell. Kayla spun to him, eyes wide. Then the last scout appeared behind her. Kayla! She turned too late. The scout slashed with a glowing blade. It hit her shoulder hard. She screamed and fell to the ground. Ryder raised his rifle, but the gun clicked empty. No. No! He ran forward, tackled the alien, and slammed his elbow into the scout's face. The thing shrieked in rage. It grabbed him, metal fingers squeezing his throat. Ryder choked, losing air fast. Then a golden flash streaked past him. Kayla, wounded and shaking, leapt onto the scout's back and drove her claws into its spine. The scout dropped Ryder and let out one final scream before collapsing. Ryder lay on the ground, coughing hard. Kayla crawled beside him, holding her injured shoulder. Blood dripped down her arm. He grabbed her hand. "Why did you run out like that?" Kayla blinked slowly. Then she reached up and touched his face again. She didn't need to answer. He could feel it in her touch. She had wanted to protect him, even if it meant dying. He wrapped both arms around her tightly and held her close. "You don't have to do this alone anymore," he whispered. Kael closed her eyes and breathed against his neck. Above them, more ships moved in the sky. The war wasn't over. But Ryder had made his choice. He wouldn't leave her. Not now. Not ever. Ryder carried Kayla through the trees, one arm under her back, the other holding the broken rifle. Her head rested against his chest, and though her body was weak, her eyes were still watching him. She hadn't spoken since the fight. Her shoulder was bleeding badly. He knew she was in pain, but she never cried. Not once. They reached the edge of a wide canyon. Smoke rose from the far side. Below them, an old human base lay half buried in the rocks. Ryder had been there once, long ago before the sky broke. Maybe there was still power. Maybe there was still hope. He laid Kayla down in a patch of soft moss and pressed his jacket to her wound. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll find something." But her hand grabbed his wrist. She shook her head. Her voice came low and rough. "Together." He looked down at her, surprised. It was the first human word she'd spoken. "Together." He repeated. She nodded. He lifted her again, held her close, and started climbing down the rocks. It took time, but they reached the bunker. The door was half open, covered in dirt and vines. He kicked it gently. It creaked, but it moved. Inside, it was dark and cold, but there was power. The lights flickered on, weak yellow but alive. He found an old medical pod half working, but still humming. He placed Kayla inside. She hissed as it closed around her but didn't fight it. The pod system began scanning, healing slowly. Ryder dropped to his knees beside her. She looked at him through the glass. Her hand pressed to the window. His met hers. Minutes passed. Then hours. The sky outside darkened again. Another storm was coming, another ship descending. Ryder looked down at the shard in his jacket. The truth, the reason they hunted her. The reason she risked everything. He slid it into the pod's panel. A soft voice spoke in his earpiece. Data confirmed. Warning, classified protocol breach. Upload complete. The message was now sent. The truth would spread. The war would change. Kayla's eyes slowly closed. She was safe now. Healing. Alive. Ryder leaned back against the pod and closed his eyes too. When he woke, she was gone from the chamber, but not far. She stood at the door, her wings wide and glowing, wearing the blanket like a robe around her shoulders. Her wounds were almost gone. Her hair flowed in the soft wind. She turned to him and smiled. then walked slowly back to his side. She sat in his lap again. Just like the first night. No words. Just warmth. Just trust. Ryder wrapped his arms around her and held her close. The blanket covered both of them again. She rested her head on his chest, curled against him like it was the only place she belonged, and maybe it was. The war would rage outside, but inside that small shelter, two hearts beat as one. One human. One alien. And something far deeper.